The morning sun cast golden light through the crystal windows of the Valen imperial palace. Princess Zira stood before her mirror, watching servants arrange the ceremonial robes around her tall, elegant frame. Today she would marry a human. Today she would sacrifice her freedom for peace. Her reflection showed a woman of striking beauty, even by Valen standards. Her skin held the pale blue tint of nobility, and her silver hair fell like liquid metal down her back. The traditional wedding crown sat heavy on her head, each jewel representing one of the 7 Valen worlds. She was 25 years old and had never imagined she would marry outside her species. Your Highness, her advisor Kelm entered with a deep bow. His formal uniform displayed the medals of a career military officer. The human delegation has arrived. The ceremony begins within the hour. Zira nodded without turning from the mirror. Tell me about him again. About Alex Chen. Kelm consulted his data pad. Age 32. Born on Earth Colony Titan, 7. Graduated from their Colonial Defense Academy with honors in diplomatic studies. He has served as a peace negotiator for 8 years. No military combat record. No previous marriages. By human standards, he is considered intelligent and well-educated. But weak, Zira said quietly. Kelm hesitated. The humans are a young species, Your Highness. They lack our physical advantages and our centuries of military tradition. This Alex Chen appears to be a typical example of their kind. Soft. Scholarly. Harmless. Zira finally turned from the mirror. And this harmless man will help secure peace between our peoples. His government speaks for 37 human worlds, Princess. The marriage treaty will end the border conflicts that have cost us thousands of lives over the past decade. Your sacrifice serves the greater good. The word sacrifice stung, but Zira accepted it. For 2 years, Valen and human fleets had clashed over mining rights in the neutral zone. Both sides had bled, but neither had gained a decisive advantage. The human ships were smaller and weaker, but they fought with unpredictable tactics that frustrated Valen commanders. A diplomatic solution had become necessary. An hour later, Zira walked down the aisle of the Great Hall. Thousands of nobles from across the empire watched in silence. At the altar, representatives from both species waited. And there stood Alex Chen. He was shorter than any Valen male, reaching only to Zira's shoulder. His black hair was neatly combed, and he wore a simple dark suit instead of military dress. His brown eyes met hers with what seemed like quiet intelligence, but also something else. A depth that surprised her. When he smiled, it was gentle and genuine. Princess Zira, he said in accented but proper Valen. I am honored to meet you. His voice was calm and respectful. No arrogance, no demand for attention. Just simple courtesy. As they spoke their vows, Zira found herself studying his hands. They were calloused and scarred in ways that seemed strange for a diplomat. When he placed the ceremonial ring on her finger, his touch was steady and sure. The ceremony concluded with traditional Valen and human elements. Both species officials signed the peace accords while the new couple exchanged their final promises. As bells rang across the capital city, Zira realized her life had changed forever. The reception lasted late into the evening. Valen nobles made polite conversation with human diplomats while military officers from both sides eyed each other with professional interest. Zira watched Alex navigate the social complexity with surprising skill. He spoke respectfully to Valen generals, shared quiet jokes with human ambassadors, and somehow managed to put everyone at ease. Your husband is not what I expected, Admiral Thane whispered to Zira during a quiet moment. The old warrior's purple eyes held curiosity rather than contempt. He carries himself strangely for a civilian. Zira observed Alex across the room. He was discussing trade agreements with a group of Valen merchants, but his posture remained alert. His eyes occasionally swept the room as if checking for threats. When a server dropped a crystal glass, Alex turned toward the sound faster than seemed necessary for a startled response. How so? Zira asked. Watch how he moves. How he stands. There is discipline there. Training. Thane stroked his gray beard thoughtfully. Perhaps humans are more interesting than we assumed. Later that night, Zira found herself alone with Alex in their new shared quarters. The rooms had been prepared with furnishings from both cultures. Human books sat beside Valan meditation crystals. Earth paintings hung next to holographic star maps. You must have questions, Alex said as he removed his formal jacket. Beneath it, he wore a simple shirt that revealed more of those puzzling scars on his forearms. Many questions. Zira sat in a comfortable chair and studied him. You are not what our intelligence reports described. Alex smiled as he poured water from a human-style pitcher. Intelligence reports rarely capture the complete picture. What would you like to know? Those scars. The way you move. Admiral Thane believes you have military training. I do. Alex settled into a chair across from her. Before joining the diplomatic corps, I served with the Colonial Defense Forces for 6 years. Our report said you had no combat record. I never said I had no combat record. I said I was a diplomat. His brown eyes held that same depth she had noticed during the ceremony. There are many types of service, Princess. Not all of them appear in official documents. Zira felt something shift in her understanding. What type of service? Alex was quiet for a long moment. The kind that keeps colonies safe from threats that never make the news reports. The kind that requires people who can think as well as fight. The kind that teaches you to study your enemies and find solutions other than direct warfare. And now? Now I work for peace. Because I understand the cost of war better than most diplomats. He leaned forward slightly. Your people are not the enemy, Princess Zira. But there are enemies out there. Real ones. The border conflicts between our species have weakened us both while more dangerous threats grow stronger. Zira thought of the increasing pirate raids in the outer systems. The mysterious attacks on shipping lanes that both Valan and human patrols had failed to stop. You mean the Void clans? Among others. Alex stood and moved to the window that looked out over the capital city. Our marriage is more than a symbol, Princess. It represents an alliance that both our peoples will need in the years ahead. Something in his tone made Zira stand as well. You speak as if war is coming. War is always coming. Alex turned back to her, and for a moment, his gentle expression held something harder underneath. The question is whether we face it as enemies or as allies. Over the following weeks, Zira began to observe her new husband more carefully. Alex maintained a daily routine that seemed strange for a diplomat. Every morning before dawn, he exercised with an intensity that left him soaked in sweat. Not the graceful combat forms that Valan warriors practiced, but something more brutal and practical. He studied constantly, but not just diplomatic texts. Ancient human military history filled his reading materials. Sun Tzu's Art of War sat beside modern tactical manuals. Books about famous human battles shared shelf space with xenology studies and weapons engineering texts. Most puzzling was his equipment. Beyond the standard plasma rifle that all diplomatic personnel carried, Alex maintained a collection of weapons that seemed almost primitive by galactic standards. Knives of various sizes and shapes. A compact projectile weapon that fired metal bullets instead of energy beams. Even stranger items that Zira did not recognize. Why do you keep these old things? She asked one evening, finding him carefully cleaning a curved blade. Every tool has its purpose. Alex tested the knife's edge with practiced precision. Modern weapons are powerful, but they can fail. Energy cells run empty. Electronics malfunction. Sometimes older solutions work better. The Valan military considers such weapons obsolete. The Valan military has never fought in environments where modern weapons become useless. Alex sheathed the blade and looked at her with those thoughtful brown eyes. Has your fleet ever fought in heavy electromagnetic interference? In zero-atmosphere conditions where energy weapons overheat? Against enemies who specifically counter advanced technology? Zira realized she did not know the answers to these questions. Valen warfare had always relied on superior technology and disciplined formations. The idea of fighting under such extreme conditions had never been part of their training. Have you fought under such conditions? Many times. Alex moved to another weapon, checking its mechanisms with the care of someone whose life had depended on such details. Humans have fought wars in every environment imaginable. We learn to adapt because we often face enemies with better technology or greater numbers. Is that why humans fight so strangely? Why your tactics confused our admirals during the border conflicts? Alex paused in his work. We fight to win, Princess. When you cannot rely on superior strength or technology, you must rely on intelligence, creativity, and the willingness to do whatever victory requires. The way he said it sent a chill down Zira's spine. There was something in his voice that spoke of experiences she could not imagine. Of choices made in desperate circumstances. Of a kind of warfare that existed beyond the civilized conflicts she knew. As their first month of marriage ended, reports began reaching the palace of increased Void Clan activity. Pirates had attacked 3 more cargo convoys, using coordinated tactics that suggested military organization. Both Valen and human patrols had responded, but the raiders had vanished into the asteroid fields of the Broken Zone. Alex spent long hours studying these reports, cross-referencing them with older intelligence data. His expression grew more serious with each passing day. When Zira asked about his concerns, he simply said that patterns were emerging that troubled him. What kind of patterns? The kind that suggest the Void clans are no longer just pirates. Alex looked up from his data screens with worry in his eyes. The kind that suggests someone is teaching them real military strategy. Zira felt the weight of his words. If the chaotic raiders of the outer systems were gaining organization and discipline, it would threaten both their peoples. The fragile peace between Valen and humanity would mean nothing if external enemies destroyed them both. As she watched Alex work late into the night, mapping raid patterns and analyzing enemy movements, Zira began to suspect that her quiet diplomat husband was far more than he appeared. The real question was whether she would discover his true nature in time to matter. 3 months after their wedding, Princess Zira and Alex were stationed at Outpost Karen, a joint diplomatic facility built on the border between Valen and human space. The massive station served as a symbol of their new alliance, housing both species representatives and military personnel. Zira had grown comfortable with the routine of peace talks and trade negotiations. The morning started like any other. Zira attended a meeting about mining rights while Alex reviewed security reports in their shared office. The Void Clan raids had increased in frequency, but they remained scattered attacks on cargo ships. Nothing suggested a direct threat to the outpost itself. Commander Vale, the Valen officer in charge of station defense, had repeatedly dismissed Alex's concerns about security gaps. These pirates lacked the ships or coordination for a major assault, Vale had said just the day before. Our shields and weapons can handle anything they might attempt. Alex had nodded politely but continued studying the raid patterns in private. Zira noticed his growing tension, the way he checked communication channels more frequently, and how he had quietly moved their emergency supplies to more accessible locations. You are worried about something, Zira said as they shared lunch in the station's observation deck. Through the transparent walls, stars shone peacefully around them. The attacks are becoming more sophisticated, Alex replied, pointing to a data pad showing recent incidents. 6 months ago, the Void clans used simple hit-and-run tactics. Now they coordinate multiple ships, use electronic warfare, and target specific cargo types. Someone is teaching them. Commander Vale believes they are still just pirates. Alex's brown eyes held that serious expression Zira had learned to recognize. Pirates don't suddenly develop military discipline without outside help. Someone wants our peoples fighting each other instead of watching for real threats. Before Zira could respond, alarm sirens began wailing throughout the station. Emergency lights bathed the corridors in red as automated voices announced a massive incoming attack. Through the observation windows, they could see dozens of ships dropping out of hyperspace in perfect formation. Void Clan raiders, Alex said grimly, but his voice carried no surprise. More ships than they have ever assembled before. They rushed to the command center where Commander Vale was shouting orders at his staff. Valen officers moved with practiced efficiency, but Zira could see confusion in their faces. The tactical display showed 43 enemy vessels approaching in coordinated attack groups. Impossible, Vale muttered, staring at the screen. Our intelligence said they possessed maybe 15 ships total. Your intelligence was wrong, Alex said quietly from behind him. Vale spun around, his purple face flushed with stress. This is a military matter, diplomat. Return to the civilian areas immediately. With respect, Commander, I have combat experience that might be useful. Experience negotiating with merchants and bureaucrats, Vale snapped. We need warriors, not talkers. The first enemy missile struck the station's outer shields, sending vibrations through the deck. Zira grabbed a support rail as lights flickered throughout the command center. On the tactical screen, she watched enemy ships spreading into attack formations that seemed impossibly organized for pirates. They are using standard military tactics, Alex observed, studying the display. Feint attacks to test our defenses while positioning heavy ships for concentrated assault. Someone trained them well. Vale ignored him, focusing on directing the station's defensive batteries. The Valen weapons fired precisely, destroying several enemy ships, but more kept coming. The raiders were accepting heavy losses to maintain their attack pattern, something that went against everything known about pirate behavior. Sir, they are jamming our communications, a young Valen officer reported. We cannot contact the patrol fleets. And they are targeting our shield generators specifically, another added. They know our weak points. Alex stepped closer to the tactical display, his expression changing in a way that made Zira's breath catch. The quiet diplomatic mask was falling away, replaced by something harder and more focused. Commander, they are going to breach the outer hull in approximately 12 minutes. You need to evacuate non-essential personnel and prepare for boarding actions. How could you possibly know that? Vale demanded. Because I recognize their formation. It is a standard assault pattern designed to overwhelm defensive positions through coordinated pressure. Alex's voice had taken on a different quality, calm, authoritative, and utterly confident. Your people are fighting them like pirates, but they are attacking like a proper military force. Another massive impact shook the station as enemy heavy weapons found their mark. Warning lights indicated shield failures across multiple sections. Through the observation ports, Zira could see enemy fighters swarming around the station like angry insects. Sir, the port docking bay has been breached, an officer reported with barely controlled panic. Enemy boarding craft are attaching to sections 7 through 12. Vale's composure finally cracked as he realized the situation was beyond his experience. The Valen military had fought pirates before, but never anything this organized. Their standard defensive protocols were failing against an enemy that fought like a real army. They will establish a foothold in the outer sections and then advance toward critical systems, Alex said, moving to stand beside the tactical display. You need to evacuate the civilian areas and establish defensive positions at the main corridors. I told you to leave, Vale snapped, but uncertainty showed in his eyes. Commander, Zira said firmly, perhaps we should listen to him. Before Vale could respond, another Valen officer rushed into the command center. Sir, Lieutenant Cross is dead. The enemy has taken sections 7 and 8. They are advancing faster than our models predicted. Zira watched her husband's face as he absorbed this information. Something changed in his posture, in the way he held himself. The diplomatic gentleman she had married seemed to transform before her eyes into something she did not recognize. Commander Vale, Alex said in a voice that carried absolute authority, your current defensive strategy will fail within 30 minutes. The enemy will control the station within an hour. If you want your people to survive, you need to let me help. You are a diplomat, Vale protested, but his voice lacked conviction. I am a soldier, Alex replied simply. I have been a soldier longer than I have been a diplomat. The command center fell silent except for the sounds of battle echoing through the station's corridors. Even the Valen officers had stopped their work to stare at Alex. Zira felt a chill run down her spine as she realized she was seeing her husband's true nature for the first time. Vale looked around at his failing defenses, then back at Alex. What do you suggest? Alex moved to the tactical controls with the confidence of someone who had used such systems many times before. His fingers flew across the interface, calling up station schematics and troop positions with practiced ease. First, we abandon the outer sections completely, he said, highlighting areas on the display. Pull all defenders back to these choke points. The enemy expects you to fight for every meter, so we give them ground while preparing killing zones. Retreat from our own station. Vale looked horrified. Strategic withdrawal to more defensible positions. Classic military doctrine. Alex continued working, overlaying new defensive plans on the station map. Second, we shut down life support to the outer sections. The enemy will have to bring their own air, limiting their operational time. Zira watched in fascination as Alex transformed the chaotic battle into an organized defensive plan. He spoke in military terms she had never heard him use before, deploying Valen personnel with the skill of an experienced commander. Third, we use the station's maintenance systems as weapons, Alex continued. Vent atmosphere from specific sections to funnel the enemy into predetermined kill zones. Use the artificial gravity controls to disorient their advance units. These are war crimes, one Valen officer protested. Alex turned to look at him with cold brown eyes. These are survival tactics. The enemy is not bound by the same rules they would expect in a formal military engagement. Another impact shook the station as enemy forces continued their advance. On the tactical screen, Zira could see red markers indicating enemy positions spreading deeper into the station's interior. Commander, Alex said urgently, you need to decide now. Follow standard protocols and lose the station, or try something different. Vale stared at the tactical display showing his failing defenses, then looked at Alex with new understanding. What else do you need? Access to the security systems, command authority over defensive units, and someone who knows the station's maintenance tunnels. Done. Vale stepped back from the command console. The defense is yours. Alex moved to the primary control station with fluid efficiency. As he began issuing rapid orders, Zira saw yet another transformation. This was not the gentle diplomat she had married, nor even the experienced soldier he had revealed himself to be. This was someone who understood warfare at a level that frightened her. All units, fall back to positions. Baker through hotel, Alex commanded through the communication system. Abandon the outer hull. Repeat, abandon the outer hull and establish defensive positions at the marked choke points. Sir, should we destroy equipment as we retreat? A Valen squad leader asked over the radio. Negative. Leave everything intact. We want them to think they are winning. Alex's voice carried the absolute confidence of someone who had planned operations like this before. Engineering, begin cycling atmospheric controls in sections 1 through 6. Security, prepare to lock down all access routes on my command. Zira moved closer to watch Alex work. His hands moved across the controls with practiced precision, monitoring multiple battle feeds while coordinating defensive positions. She realized that everything she thought she knew about humans had been wrong. They were not just diplomatic scholars or peaceful merchants. They were something far more dangerous. Princess, you should move to the secure section, Alex said without looking away from his displays. I want to understand what you are doing. Alex paused for just a moment to meet her eyes. I am showing your people how humans really fight when diplomacy fails. As enemy forces poured deeper into the station, following the routes Alex had predicted, Zira began to understand that she had not married a man seeking peace. She had married a warrior who used peace as another weapon in an arsenal she was only beginning to discover. Alex's fingers moved across the command console with deadly precision as enemy forces advanced deeper into Outpost Karen. On the tactical display, red markers showed Void Clan raiders pushing through the abandoned outer sections exactly as he had predicted. Zira watched her husband coordinate the defense with skills that no diplomat should possess. Engineering, confirm atmospheric pressure in sections 4 through 6, Alex commanded through his headset. Confirmed, sir. All sections reading 0 pressure. Emergency barriers are in place. Alex nodded, his brown eyes never leaving the tactical screen. Security, are the blast doors ready? All doors armed and standing by for your signal. Zira moved closer to observe the display. The enemy forces had formed into 3 main attack groups, advancing through corridors that Alex had deliberately left undefended. To the Valen officers watching, it looked like their defensive line was collapsing. But Alex's expression remained calm and focused. They are taking the bait, Alex murmured, more to himself than anyone else. Predictable military doctrine. Seize ground, establish positions, advance in formation. Commander Vale approached nervously. They have reached checkpoint Delta. Should we engage? Not yet. Alex highlighted specific areas on the station map. Let them establish their forward positions. The deeper they advance, the more complete their defeat will be. You are letting them take half our station, Vale protested. I am letting them think they are taking half our station. Alex's voice carried a cold certainty that made Zira shiver. There is a difference. Through the station's internal cameras, they could watch enemy soldiers moving through the corridors with professional efficiency. These were not random pirates anymore. They wore matching armor, used coordinated tactics, and advanced with the discipline of trained military units. Whoever trained them did good work, Alex observed, studying their movement patterns. Standard assault formations, proper communications discipline, effective use of cover and concealment. Can we defeat them? Zira asked. Alex turned to look at her with an expression that seemed almost sad. Princess, your people fight with honor and discipline. You follow established tactics because they have served you well for centuries. But humans learned long ago that survival requires adaptability. Another series of explosions echoed through the station as enemy heavy weapons targeted the inner defensive positions. Several Valen soldiers fell back from their positions, reporting heavy casualties and equipment losses. Sir, we cannot hold these positions much longer, a squad leader reported over the radio. Understood. All units, execute fallback protocol 7. Abandoned positions echo through Gulf and retreat to the core sections. Alex's orders came with mechanical precision, but Zira noticed something different in his voice. A hardness that spoke of experiences she could barely imagine. As the Valen defenders retreated deeper into the station, Alex began the final phase of his plan. His hands moved across multiple control panels simultaneously, activating systems that had nothing to do with normal defensive operations. What are you doing? Vale demanded as warning lights began flashing throughout the command center. Showing them why humans are dangerous when cornered, Alex replied without emotion. The first trap activated when the lead enemy units reached Junction Gamma 7. Alex had vented atmosphere from that section hours ago, but he had also filled it with industrial lubricant from the station's maintenance systems. When enemy soldiers tried to advance through the corridor, they found themselves sliding helplessly on surfaces slicker than ice. Now, Alex commanded. Emergency blast doors slammed shut behind the struggling enemy soldiers, trapping them in the airless, slippery corridor. Through the security cameras, Zira watched trained warriors flailing helplessly as their magnetic boots failed to grip the coated surfaces. Gravity controls to maximum in Section Gamma 7, Alex ordered calmly. The artificial gravity in that corridor increased to 3 times normal, crushing the trapped soldiers against the deck. Their military discipline meant nothing against environmental hazards they had not anticipated. Engineering, begin thermal cycling in sections Delta through Foxtrot. Thermal cycling initiated, sir. Alex had turned the station's climate control system into a weapon. Temperature in the enemy-occupied sections began fluctuating wildly, from freezing cold to burning heat and back again. Enemy equipment began failing as electronics overheated and power systems struggled with the extreme conditions. "This is not warfare," Vale whispered in horror as he watched the tactical display. "This is something else. This is how humans fight when the rules do not matter," Alex replied without looking away from his controls. "Your people fight with honor because you can afford to. Humans fight to win because we usually cannot afford to lose." The second phase of Alex's plan involved the station's magnetic containment systems. He had quietly reconfigured them to create powerful electromagnetic fields in specific corridors. When enemy soldiers carrying energy weapons entered those areas, their equipment began overloading and exploding. Security, activate the maintenance drones in Section Hotel. Throughout the occupied areas of the station, construction robots suddenly came online with new programming. Instead of repairing hull breaches, they began welding blast doors shut, sealing enemy soldiers into compartments with no way out. Zira watched in fascination and growing fear as Alex systematically destroyed an organized military force using nothing but the station's normal systems. He had turned their own base into a massive trap, using environmental controls and maintenance equipment as weapons of war. "How long have you been planning this?" she asked quietly. "Since the day we arrived." Alex finally looked away from the tactical display to meet her eyes. "I have been studying this station's systems for months, preparing for exactly this type of attack." "You knew this would happen." "I knew something like this would happen eventually." The Void clans were being organized by someone with real military experience. This attack was inevitable once they felt ready. Through the communication system, they could hear enemy commanders trying to coordinate their scattered forces. But Alex's traps had broken their formations and isolated their units. What had been an organized assault was becoming a chaotic struggle for survival. "Phase 3, Alex announced, his voice taking on an edge that made every Valen officer step back involuntarily. He activated the station's fire suppression system, but instead of standard suppressant foam, Alex had loaded it with industrial adhesive. Enemy soldiers found themselves stuck to walls and floors, unable to move as the quick-hardening compound trapped them in place. "All Valen units, begin counterattack operations," Alex commanded. "Enemy forces are now isolated and immobilized. Advance to positions marked on your displays and neutralize all hostiles." Commander Vale stared at the tactical screen in amazement. The enemy force that had seemed overwhelming minutes ago was now scattered, trapped, and helpless. Red markers showing enemy positions had become stationary targets waiting for elimination. "How is this possible?" Vale asked. "Human military doctrine emphasizes adaptability and resource utilization," Alex explained as he continued coordinating the counterattack. "We use whatever works, regardless of whether it follows traditional combat protocols." Alex stood up from the command console and moved toward the equipment lockers where he kept his personal weapons. As he stripped off his diplomatic jacket, Zira saw that he wore combat gear underneath. The scars on his arms suddenly made sense. This was not the body of a scholar. This was the body of someone who had fought and survived in ways she was only beginning to understand. "Where are you going?" Zira called after him. "To finish this personally." Alex checked his weapons with practiced efficiency. The gentle diplomat was completely gone now, replaced by someone who moved with predatory grace. "The enemy commander is still coordinated resistance from Section Bravo 4. I need to eliminate him." "Send soldiers," Vale protested. "You are too valuable to risk." Alex paused at the command center door and looked back with eyes that seemed to hold depths of experience that Zira could not fathom. "Commander, this is what I do. This is what humans do when peace fails." As Alex left the command center, Zira found herself following him despite Vale's protests. She had to see for herself what her husband became when the diplomatic mask fell away completely. The corridors of the station had become a battlefield, but not the kind of warfare Zira knew from Valen military tradition. This was something more primal and terrifying. Alex moved through the passages like a ghost, appearing where enemies least expected him and disappearing before they could respond. She watched from a safe distance as Alex engaged enemy soldiers with a combination of advanced human technology and primitive weapons that seemed to flow seamlessly together. He used plasma grenades to force enemies into specific positions, then eliminated them with knives when they sought cover. He turned corners with perfectly timed movements that spoke of countless hours of training and real combat experience. When enemy soldiers tried to establish defensive positions, Alex used the station's systems against them. Emergency lights became blinding strobes that destroyed their night vision. Communication jammers isolated them from their commanders. Environmental controls made corridors uninhabitable through temperature extremes or atmospheric manipulation. He is not fighting them, Zira realized as she watched Alex systematically destroy the enemy force. He is hunting them. Alex reached the enemy command position in Section Bravo 4 where the raid leader had established a defensive strongpoint. Instead of launching a direct assault, Alex spent 15 minutes carefully studying the position and planning his approach. When he finally moved, it was with surgical precision. He cut power to the section, plunging it into darkness. Emergency lighting provided just enough illumination for Alex to see his targets while leaving them half-blind. He used smoke grenades to further confuse their vision, then attacked from multiple directions using the maintenance tunnels he had studied for months. The enemy commander was a professional warrior who had probably fought dozens of battles across the galaxy. But he had never faced anything like Alex Chen. Within 10 minutes, the organized resistance collapsed as Alex eliminated the command structure with brutal efficiency. Attention all enemy units, Alex broadcast through the station's communication system. Your commander is neutralized. Your forces are trapped and cut off. Surrender now and you will be treated according to standard military protocols. Continue resistance and you will be eliminated. The response was immediate. Throughout the station, surviving enemy soldiers began laying down their weapons and requesting mercy. The organized assault force that had threatened to overwhelm the outpost was broken and defeated. When Alex returned to the command center, Zira barely recognized him. His clothes were torn and stained, his weapons showed signs of recent use, and his eyes held an expression of controlled violence that terrified and fascinated her. Casualty report, he requested from Commander Vale. 17 Valen wounded, 3 seriously. No fatalities among our forces, Vale replied with obvious amazement. Enemy casualties are estimated at 60%. The remainder have surrendered. Alex nodded and began securing his weapons with the same methodical care he had shown while preparing for battle. As he cleaned his equipment, the predatory intensity gradually faded from his expression. Now we can discuss real peace, Alex said quietly to Zira. Because both our peoples understand what it costs to fight each other instead of working together. Zira looked at her husband with completely new eyes. She had married him thinking humans were weak. She had discovered they were the most dangerous species she had ever encountered. They did not avoid war because they feared it. They avoided war because they were too good at it. This is why you wanted the marriage treaty, she said with growing understanding. This is why both our peoples need the marriage treaty, Alex corrected. Because there are worse enemies than Void Clan pirates waiting in the darkness between stars. And when they come, we will need to face them together. As medical teams treated the wounded and security forces processed prisoners, Zira realized that peace was not about weakness or compromise. Peace was about being strong enough to choose diplomacy over destruction. And humans, she now understood, were definitely strong enough to make that choice.